Fantasy Versus holds a really special place in my heart. It's a fighting game that's been living rent-free in my head since its initial release back in winter 2020, and with Rising its sequel right around the corner, I want to reminisce and just look back at how and why I fell in love with Granblue Fantasy Versus as both a product and as a fighting game, and how Rising its sequel will push it to greater heights. So let's get to it. But before we get to that, if you want to support your boy in his future endeavors, by all means, like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to be up there with the big dogs, and your support will really help that. Oh man, where do I start? I remember around December of 2018 when the reveal trailer for Versus was released, and I just got hit with the meanest stun lock. I was amazed, and I was really shocked at what I was looking at. Visually, this game looked really stunning, and it really captured the anime aesthetic that I like and admired about most Arc System Works games, or really just fighting games in general. Mind you, this is the first time I heard about the Granblue IP. Still, I knew that Arc System Works had a huge involvement with this game, so I was immediately sold on the idea that Granblue was getting a fighting game, despite me not having no prior knowledge to the mobile game or the anime series that dropped around this time. Fast forward to March 3rd of 2020, Granblue Fantasy Versus finally released to the US, and man, this game hit different. The reception for Granblue Versus was fairly positive. Most of the scores and ratings range from 7 to 8 out of 10s, and most of its praise really comes from how innovative the gameplay was and how it welcomed both newcomers and fighting game veterans alike. Funnily enough, Granblue Fantasy Versus creative director Tetsuya Fukuhara designed Granblue Fantasy Versus with accessibility in mind. In fact, the game was heavily inspired by Street Fighter 2, and you can see it in the gameplay. It's a much slower and methodical game compared to most anime fights that were released during this time. On top of that, the game was more grounded and less combo oriented, but it really encouraged fundamentals first. That's why you ever notice whenever you hear things about Granblue Versus around that time, people would just call it anime Street Fighter. But for me, I thought it was a good change of pace. Now, there are a few aspects that stood out to me when playing Granblue Fantasy Versus, and from a gameplay aspect, there are a few. One of them being that this is one of the very few anime fighters that introduce a universal dodge and sway system for the entire cast. It gives the player another layer of defensive options, because there is a guard button in this game, but say if someone throws a projectile or a normal that has a lot of range but it has a lot of recovery to it, well, you can dodge it or sway it, and if you do it correctly, depending on the properties of that move, you can punish it afterwards. However, if you dodge too early or too soon, you're gonna end up in a counter hit state if you get hit, and it's gonna hurt. In later updates, they did add rush, backshift, and overdrive as new system mechanics to the game, but these were augmented in Rising, and probably for good reason. They were decent mechanics, but by having those mechanics on top of having the mechanics for Granblue Rising, they wouldn't coexist with each other too well. Honestly, it would just be straight up chaos if they did. So I'm kind of glad they omitted them and added just better mechanics overall. Last but not least, one of the most notable mechanics in Granblue Fantasy Versus that really made it unique was its skill cooldown system. You see, in Granblue Fantasy Versus, when you input a special move, it'll be unusable for a set amount of time, similar to how it is in the mobile game. But it depends on whether if you use the technical input or the simple input, and it can really affect not only the rate of the cooldown but the damage and its properties to that special move. And this was a really cool system, say for those who never touched a fighting game, or not really good with motion inputs, or really have a disability with the hands that makes doing motion inputs difficult. There's an option to do simple inputs by just pressing a button in a direction instead of doing the entire motion input. Mind you, you lose out on damage, but here's the thing. You can still use both simple and technical inputs mid-match. You can actually use them for certain situations. For an example, say my opponent commits to a jump in attack and I want to react. I could do the technical input for more damage, but I may not be able to react as fast doing the motion input. However, if I do the shortcut input, it'll be a much quicker reaction in exchange of less damage, and you can use a mix of both during your gameplay, which is something that I really like. Now, I know we've been talking about the gameplay aspect of Granblue that I really like, but there's something else that I really want to get into, and that is the mission training mode. I love this mode so much. It was so ahead of its time. This mode essentially gives you the tools and resources to learn the game, and it does that with flying colors to me. The tutorials are deep, they break down the basics, your character skills, and even matchups, and even some combo samples to try out. Hell, there's even a glossary if you're confused with any of the mechanics or terminology. Right then and there, you can just look through it and just assess it from there. Then there's the RPG mode, which I feel a lot of people do not give Versus a lot of credit for. What made this mode so unique compared to most fighting game single player content is that it felt like a side scroller beat 'em up with RPG elements. And I guess the closest thing I can really say that felt that way in a fighting game was the scenario mode from Tekken 6. You could choose between different characters, there were different weapons that you can unlock and grind and customize, and there was skills that you can unlock and upgrade to fit your playstyle. And there's even the grid system similar to how it is in the mobile game, which is pretty sick. And there's even cutscenes, boss battles with really good music. And on top of that, there was co-op in this game. You can either team up with a CPU or team up with a homie. And I'm telling you, it's just a really fun ride, especially just playing this mode with your friends. And initially it was short, but the end game and doing the hard mode challenges were always pretty fun to me. It was a really good change from your average fighting game content that you will see. Last but not least, we gotta talk about the presentation for Granblue Fantasy Versus. Now, we all know when it comes to anime fighters, our system works normally cooks and they deliver when it comes to 2.5D models, animations, camera angles, and just visuals in general. And even after 3 years, this game still looks beautiful. It captures the Granblue fantasy look to a T, from the music to the UI to the environment to the character models and even the animations that occur during gameplay. When I see someone throw a super in this game, I feel like I'm watching an art piece come to life. Like, it is visually really nice to look at, and you can just tell that they put so much passion and love into the visuals, so it feels right at home, not only to just Granblue fans but to those that really like the anime aesthetic. Now, those are the things that really made me fall in love with vanilla Granblue Fantasy Versus. However, there is one drawback that really changed a lot of people's perceptions on this game and what led to this game being under the radar for a while, and that is the netcode. If you guys may or may not know, Granblue Versus was designed with delay-based netcode. Delay-based netcode is very outdated. It slows down your input so it can match up with your opponent. That way it can seem more like you're playing locally, which you're not, and it sucks really bad. It is not a fun experience. However, most people tolerate it since around this time rollback netcode wasn't really pushed heavily, and that is the most up to standard netcode that most fighting games have nowadays. Now, this all changed when the COVID outbreak happened in 2020. The good thing is that the game was still receiving updates and events around this time, but it was becoming more difficult to play this game due to it having delay-based netcode. Mind you, this outbreak not only canceled a lot of local tournaments for this game whenever Granblue was just fresh and new, but it also canceled some major tournaments, including its chance to be at EVO 2020. And yes, to this day, it still hurts just thinking about it. And while this was going on, this was the time where I really just stopped being interested in the game anymore, and eventually I just dropped the game entirely, and I just thought all hope was lost. January 21st, 2023, Cygames released a reveal trailer for Granblue Fantasy Versus Rising, and oh dear god, I was in shambles. Granblue was getting a comeback. Not only did it get an expansion for the new story, new characters, new mechanics, but we were getting rollback netcode, the superior netcode that most fighting games have nowadays, and we were also getting crossplay. This was a miracle. I kid you not, I damn near broke into tears the moment that I found out that this game was coming back. It was just beautiful. It's good to see so many new people willing to try this game and give it a second chance. It puts a big smile on my face. I always thought this game was really good. There's a lot of factors that I never took into account when playing fighting games until I played Versus. It shaped me as a fighting game player, and I'm happy to see that Rising is going to bring a lot of people back into this game, and hopefully it succeeds in everything that it does. So with that being said, my name is Zenos. I hope you guys take it easy, stay safe, and be great.
Don't you want a rematch?